I find drum programming really annoying and time consuming, and it just kind of ruins my creativity when I'm in the moment. I can quite happily record some instrumentation, maybe some keyboard, guitar, whatever, and then when it comes to putting the drums down, I find I have to spend 10 hours to get something that is remotely passable, because I'm not a drummer. I try not to use loops, I try to make my own stuff, but it takes ages, and as a result of that, I decided there has to be a better way with the tools that I've got, and pretty much the only tool I've got is this Octatrack, which is why I created the drum programming template thingy, and it's been working out pretty well for me. I like it a lot. I get stuff done a lot faster than I would have before. I don't have to feel like I'm some kind of NASA engineer plucking away at all these knobs and twiddles to just to get something that sounds remotely passable. I don't know if I'm being too harsh on myself or not, but I just want to get a drum loop that fits the music that I'm writing as quick as possible, using the sounds that I want as well. And so this is what the template is about. The template is a constant work in progress. Essentially, anytime I need to create a new drum loop for a song that I'm working on, I will either consult the banks of patterns that I've already programmed. If nothing suits, then I'll create a new one and it will get saved in there. So I've got 6 banks with multiple patterns in. Each bank is essentially a song that I was working on, where pattern 1 would be, say, a chorus, and then pattern 2 would be a verse, pattern 3 maybe a middle 8, something like that. So they kind of group together nicely. And the way the tracks are broken up, track 1 I've got for kicks, track 2 is snare, and then there's claps, hi-hats, percussion 1, percussion 2, track 7 is for loops, I'll get to that later, and track 8 is the master track. You can see in the patterns I've got like ghost notes, got little fills at the end of the patterns, all the bells and whistles are there, all the fancy stuff, the stuff that I hate doing every single time. Each track for each part has its own assigned slot, so for part 1, tracks 1 to 7 are assigned 1 to 7, and then for part 2 it starts from track 9 onwards, and so on with parts 3 and 4. They all have their own slots assigned, and so the idea is you select sounds for drum kits for part 1, and then different sounds for part 2, different sounds for part 3 and 4, and then when you're auditioning the drums alongside your music, you can switch up the sounds of the drum kit, and that helps me decide which drum kit suits the music best. However, track 7 will always use the same slot regardless of which part you've got loaded up, and the idea for that is track 7 will be playing a loop of the music that you are working on. So when I'm working on a song, I'll record a loop of it, I'll come into the drum programming template project, I'll load that loop on track 7, and then I can program my drums around the instrumentation so that I can ensure both the sounds of the drums and the programming match the song itself. So in this example I've just got a short loop that I want to create some drums for. I'll load them into the project on slot 7 for track 7. This is my loop. Cool. So I'll load that in. You can see how I've already got one trig ready and I've got loop on, so I literally just need to select the sample and I'm ready to go, just like that. Now what I want to do is load some samples into my tracks. So here's the kick drum, find a nice kick sound, go through all my one-shot kick samples. So while I'm doing this, it's probably a good time to remind you, if you like the video, if you like the template, if for some reason you get enjoyment from watching all this stuff, if you learn something, please feel free to, click the like button, subscribe, hit the bell, break into people's houses if you have to, scream out the URL of my YouTube channel in the streets, tattoo it onto your forehead, shoot some fireworks at a bird. I'm just joking, don't do that, that's crazy. Rent a billboard and put my face on it, even though never revealed my face. I'll do a face reveal at some point when I'm less embarrassed by my own existence. So one thing I need to do now is I need to go through all of my samples because they're fresh samples and I've got slice mode switched on. So I just need to go through each sample, add a single slice that covers the entire sample. And the reason for this we'll get to a bit later. There is a very good reason for it though. There we go. It's quite nice already actually. On the master I've got reverb and filter. So let's go into part 2 and put something in, but this time I'm going to do something different. Let's speed this bit up maybe. It's the sound of speed. I can't do that sound. Stupid. And you see for every track, for the samples on every single track, I have got 8 slices. So I've got 8 kicks that sound very similar in one file, 8 snares that sound very similar in another file, 8 hi-hat hits in another file, 8 high toms and 8 low toms. And the whole point of this is so that every time the kick or the snare hits, it's slightly different and it sounds more realistic. Hi-hat's a bit quiet, so I tend to use the gain in the file attributes. So that's part 1. Part 2. Just bring the toms up a bit. Oh, nice. And this, using slices really helps me to create a more realistic drum loop. You'll notice on percussions 1 and 2 that I've got the balance set plus 30 and minus 30. And one more thing to note, if you've got a slow tempo, then you can actually double up the hi-hats on most of the patterns by setting it to fill mode. Yeah, I like this. And we can select different patterns. So when I'm done with track 7 and I know that my drum kit matches the instrumentation that I'm working with, I can actually swap it out for some kind of Foley effect. I need to turn time stretch off. So here I've got rain. I can actually throw together another drum kit and just see how that sounds. I'm going to randomly pick some random sample hits from my sample pool. It's quite nice. bring the snare up a bit. And then when you're happy with everything, I usually record from two separate tracks depending on what I want. In track 7 you can record from queue, so if you wanted to you could queue up separate tracks to record, and on track 8 I'm recording everything coming out of the master. You can see on track 8 I've already got the trig set up, so just hold the trig and press yes and record the loop. Play around with it a bit while it's recording, and then you can take a look at what you just recorded, and then you can save it to disk and load that into your song project. I'll give it the name Drum Loop 1, I guess. And there we are, Drum Loop 1. Ready to be loaded into my song project and do what you want with it, basically. So yeah, have fun with it. I hope you enjoy learning about the way I work on drums. I find it, like I said, I find it really useful. I can get some drums down really quickly now instead of spending half a day. Yeah, so enjoy. Love you all. Cheerio.